record. All right. So thank you all for joining us for this program about wildlife connections using trail cameras. I'm Mariah Fogg, the Community Conservation Manager for the Berkshire Natural Resources Council, and I'm joined tonight by my coworker, Rich Montone, the Director of Fundraising for BNRC. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the Berkshire Natural Resources Council is a land trust, regional land trust, actively working throughout Berkshire County on land conservation, land stewardship, and community engagement in Western Massachusetts. BNRC conserves land to protect water resources and wildlife habitat for climate resilience and to connect people to the natural world. I'll pass it over to Rich for a moment.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Sally. I'm really looking forward to your presentation. I am the Director of Fundraising at BNRC, so I wanted to let you know that this program is free thanks to donors. BNRC is donor supported, donor funded. So all of the wildlife preservation and the land conservation and the support of local farmers and the free access to the Berkshire outdoors, it all happens because donors choose to make it so. So I'm going to pop a link in the chat in case you would like to make a donation to BNRC. From many of the names here, I see that many of you are donors. So thank you for that. And with that said, glad you're here, and let's continue with the program.
Great, thanks so much, Rich. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see our speaker for tonight. And at this time, I'd like to share that it is with gratitude and humility that we acknowledge that we are learning, speaking, and gathering on the ancestral homelands of the Mohican people, who are the indigenous people of this land. Despite tremendous hardship in being forced from here, today their community resides in Wisconsin and is known as the Stockbridge-Muncie community. We pay honor and respect to their ancestors, past and present, as we commit to building a more inclusive and equitable space for all. And to learn more, you can visit mohican.com. We ask that you please give thought to the native land that you are zooming in from. And with that, I am thrilled to introduce our speaker tonight, Sally Naser. Sally is the Director of Conservation Restriction Stewardship for the Trustees of Reservations, and has been doing wildlife camera photography in her spare time since 2013, primarily on privately owned conservation restriction properties in Western and North Central Massachusetts. With over 49,000, wow, social media followers to her CR Wildlife Cam's Facebook and Instagram pages, her videos have often gone viral when picked up by the media, including a recent Berkshire's otter gliding over a frozen beaver pond. Super fun. Sally has done numerous trail camera presentations over the years for regional land trusts and local libraries, as well as the Northeast Trackers Conference and the Massachusetts Land Conservation Conference. Her photos and trail cam adventures have been featured in the New York Times, Northern Woodlands, Massachusetts Wildlife Magazine, the Boston Globe, and the Land Trust Alliance's Special Places magazine. I want to let you know we do have a dedicated Q&A session towards the end, so please make sure to jot down your questions along the way. And without further delay, I'll pass it over to Sally.
All right. Thank you, Mariah. Thank you, Rich. Welcome, everybody. So Wildlife Connections. You know, trail cameras can really teach us a lot about our wildlife neighbors and just about the world around us. So let's see what's happening here. Oh, wait, okay, sorry about that. So I've been doing trail cams since 2013. I started, you know, we got a small grant at the Trustees of Reservations where I work. And the obsession grew from there. So that beaver dam that Mariah mentioned with the otter, that's this one, and it is in the Berkshires. This is another shot from behind. That's that beaver dam behind me. So I've got thousands of these pictures of just setting up trail cameras, but I'm obsessed here. So I'm going to start with this video. This is again from the Berkshires. This is a 2-year compilation of from having several trail cams set up on either end of this beaver dam. And one of my absolute favorite places to set up trail cameras is on beaver dams or around beaver ponds. Living here now in Massachusetts, and with climate change, we've had, several droughts. We had a drought this past summer. We had one in 2016. And you'll see all of these dates here in the top left-hand corner, says 2016. But that didn't affect, because of this rich environment that beaver right there created. I think this is why I got so much amazing footage in a 2-year time span, basically from the same camera setup, which that's the camera right there that had most of the stuff, including this one. But eventually the beaver came and chewed down the tree that had my camera on it. So that's the cost of doing business, I guess. But like I said, that's one of the biggest questions I get asked by people is, how can I get stuff like you? Where should I set up my cameras? So, if you don't have a beaver pond nearby, maybe your local land trust like BNRC does, and would like you to help out as a, citizen scientist for them. So there's our nature engineer hard at work. So, as Mariah said, I do a lot of trail cameras right on some of the trustees' conservation restriction properties. This is when I started doing cameras in 2013. And, I know a lot of people that follow my page, say, you get such great stuff, but this was probably one of the first really, really good photos that I got. So, and for all the stuff you don't see on my social media, I mean, trust me, I get thousands and thousands and thousands of, pictures of blowing leaves and, just the otter's tail and things like that. So, but I like this picture because, wildlife, it really is closer than you think. These CR landowners had lived on this property for 25 years, there's their house right in the back with the smoke coming out of the chimney, and they had no idea this gray fox was out there. And this bobcat, I got him too, just sitting in front of my camera for maybe 15 minutes, and I suspect there's a stone wall underneath that snow, and probably just looking for rodents that were traveling along. So in terms of cameras, just the sort of the basics of your trail camera. That's another huge question I get is, I don't get stuff like you, my camera's terrible. So one of the things I do ask people two questions is, when did you get the camera? Because the technology has really come a long way, just in the time since I've been doing trail cameras. And the other thing that I really advise, if you're serious about doing setting up a trail camera, whether it's in your backyard or in your back 40 or on a land trust property with permission, you sort of get what you pay for. So I don't personally run a $50 trail camera off of that, no name brand one off of Amazon. I'm sure that might be perfectly fine for some people. But what I do hear from folks is, the quality isn't there. There's no warranty. And, you pay for a $50 camera, it might last a year or two. So, so I'm not promoting, and I'm certainly, as we go through the presentation, you'll see certain, camera models that I do use. So, anyway, so the basics just of your camera, of how it works, and the things you want to sort of pay attention to when you're shopping for a camera is the detection range, the recovery time. Basically, I mean, detection range, like how close does the animal have to be to the camera? And the recovery time is basically, once it gets triggered, if there's a beaver or bobcat or something in front of your camera, how quickly can it start to take either another photo or another video? One caution I have is about megapixels. Don't buy a camera purely because it's like 50 megapixels, because that's interpolated often. So that's just a little FYI. So and then in terms of the settings on a trail camera, most you have to choose whether you want to take just still photos or videos. And then several camera brands, I really like operating a camera that has a hybrid mode option. So what that means is every time it gets triggered by this infrared sensor, it will give you one or maybe 3 photos, as well as a 5, 10, 15-second video. So, this slide is actually from a presentation I did, I think, about this time last year, but this is still pretty true. So for a good quality setup, you can do that for, $150 or less. Here in BNRC's territory, as well as where I set up cameras, including here in North Central Mass, we do have black bears, so I highly recommend investing in a bear box. I'm also setting them up, not in my backyard, so I also invest in a $20 cable lock. That's this right here. And the camera, this camera right here, or similar to that, is on sale right now, which I can share a link at the end of this, or with Mariah as follow-up, but you can get this for about $125. So, some of the brands that I use, this is a Browning, that's a Bushnell, I use Reconyx. I also use Spartan is a really great brand as well. So, oh, and one thing that I will mention here real quick, people, I might have a slide for that, but since it's right here, I'll say it. I mean, people ask me, does it really matter what batteries I use? So, here in the Berkshires, right now it's pretty unseasonable weather, but it can get pretty cold. So I personally run lithium batteries in all of my cameras because, we had 13 below about 2 weeks ago. So if you're using alkaline batteries, that can often drain them pretty quickly. So the question of do I really need a bear box? This is not my photo. This is from Cuddy Back's website, but that's somebody's trail cam strap about to be bit off by a bear. And I have had, you'll certainly see in some of my videos here that will show you of bears what I call inspecting my trail cameras. So the other question when you're shopping for a trail camera is what sort of flash do you want? Do you want an infrared flash, or what they sort of call, most camera people will call a red glow camera, or a white flash, which is an incandescent flash or a xenon flash that will give you a color photos at nighttime. I'm 56 years old, so I certainly am old enough to remember the little flash cameras with a flash cube on top. So you can see this bobcat here. He's not too happy about that white flash in his face. His eyes are squinted shut. But I have found that certain animals, like for example, beavers or raccoons, they could care less about the white flash. I've also done a little experimentation with what I call, in the trail cam insider lingo, just called like a homebrew camera. So this is actually a GoPro built into an otter, like a waterproof otter box to keep everything dry and the batteries and everything. And this is, again, this is behind that beaver dam where we looked at the video in the beginning. This is another one of my favorite spots. This is an upland vernal pool. as you can see, here comes the trail cam inspector, this mother bear and her 2 cubs. You know, the one there in the back, he doesn't seem too overly interested, but mom and her cub are mauling my camera here. So that's why it has this sort of artistic fogging from the bear's hot breath on my camera. So bears, I don't know what it is. They absolutely can't resist the trail cameras because, you know, I mean, I do get asked, like, do you use, you know, a lot of hunters will use stuff to like descent their clothes. And I don't do that, but I am conscious to, you know, not, you know, eat a hamburger and then start handling my cameras. These are, I also have the same guy in Mississippi that helped me build that GoPro camera, also helped me just take a simple little Panasonic point and shoot camera and build that into an otter, you know, one of those waterproof Pelican boxes, I think it is. But this is a great photo I got over the last summer. I think that it's in that same vernal pool where the bears just were, but because of the drought, there's no water. And this is a nice one of the porcupine. So, you know, it is nice to get those color nighttime photos because, as we know, a lot of wildlife is most active at night. And this is, where is this? Oh, this is right here in North Central Mass. So that beaver's actually making, this is in the springtime, I think of last year, and it's in the process of making a scent mound, which beavers will do in order to send a message to other beavers that this is their pond. So, you know, where do we want to set up? So, you know, the things that I'm looking for, especially like if I were to come out to your property and help you scout to do where would be a good place for a camera, my number one thing is water. We're you know, everybody needs, every living thing needs water. So, and it doesn't, you know, this is the beaver pond. It doesn't need to be a beaver pond. It, you know, pretty soon we're going to have vernal pools everywhere filled, just teeming with life. That's an amazing place to set up a trail camera. Or just, you know, wet seep in the woods along a stream bank. You know, lots of options there. So, you know, other things that I look for is food sources and then just track and sign of animals. And, you know, lastly, another question, which I'll often ask people when they ask me, what, you know, what's a good trail camera for me, Sally? I will ask them, what is your target species? So, because if your target species is otters, they're pretty zippy. So you want to make sure you get a camera with a pretty fast trigger speed. So those are all things to consider. So you know, so track and sign. I mean, I do pay attention to that when I'm setting up cameras, but I will be perfectly honest, that's not my number one thing in terms of scat. Track certainly, you know, if I see signs of moose browse or things like that, that's what we're seeing here on the right. What you're seeing there on the left is, this is actually where I had a trail camera set up and I came back and I had, I don't know, in 2 weeks, I had 2,000 photos, and it's because I accidentally set up on where I think squirrels had a cache of their nuts underneath that log. So those are all little rodent tracks in front of my camera. So other types of wildlife sign, you know, it's all there if you look carefully for it. Right there, here on the left, that's bear's hair caught or stuck to this pine. Obviously, you know, I like to call this art in the landscape of beavers. So that's a sure sign that beavers are active with all these fresh chips. And, you know, and scat. This is actually one of our conservation restriction, the trustees' conservation restriction properties in the Berkshires. And this particular CR has an upland cranberry bog. So that's what you're seeing here, filled with cranberry, you know, seeds there. That's bear scat. So I'm a huge fan of Sue Morse. When we the trustees first got that grant to get, purchase our trail cameras, I was lucky enough to be able to sign up with the Berkshire's training that she was doing with Berkshire Beat. But one of her mantras there is, half of tracking is knowing where to look. The other half is looking. That's, so she's just talking about, wildlife tracking, but I've certainly applied that to my trail cam work. So, what natural features, we already talked about that, about wetland habitat is a great natural feature to set up on, but here's just, this is just a little trickle of an intermittent stream in the Berkshires. This camera was actually set up by my colleague, Julie Richberg, who's our inland ecologist for the trustees. And I like to use this example because, she set up here really, really hoping to get a moose. She didn't get a moose, but she got everything but that moose. So she got the black bear. I mean, she also got, I think an owl had visited and took a bath in that stream, and I had never seen that before. So then, again, anywhere near a beaver pond, it doesn't have to be on the beaver dam. I've found just below a beaver dam is a great place if there's pooled water there, because really great spot to get great blue herons. Stone walls is a good spot to set up on. And again, I set up on the stone wall, sort of hoping I was going to get, fishers and things like that. So I was very happy to get this black bear coming by. Is everybody seeing that on my screen? I apologize if that's kind of in the way, this bar.
I can see the black bear, yeah.
Okay, I don't know why that's normally just kind of like tucks out somewhere, but I'll stick it up there. So just having a little trouble here. Okay, so other things along stone walls, like I said, stone walls in the winter are great as well, because a lot of predators, such as this barred owl, will be patrolling that stone wall. I mean, I can't see what is at the end of that barred owl's talons, but I suspect it's some sort of small rodent. Bobcats, if any of you have a cat, that lives in your house, that, why walk on the floor when you can walk across the mantelpiece and knock all the candlesticks and photos on the ground. So same thing, I find that their wild cousins definitely like to travel along stone walls. This is a Berkshire's stone wall. And sometimes you get lucky where the bobcat or whatever's traveling along comes right up to the camera. So logs are a great place to set up trail cam too. One of the lessons that I learned early on from a sort of an ecology mentor of mine said, Sally, if you're in the woods and you're sort of naturally drawn to a place, try setting up a trail camera, because maybe other things. And I remember just being in the woods and just this particular log just sort of kept kind of speaking to me. So I set up a trail camera, came back a couple weeks later, and I think the day after I set it up, this beautiful coyote came walking down the log. Here's some other examples of log walkers, as I like to call them. The bobcat. This is in the Berkshires too. This really surprised me. Great white egret. And this is there is a pond nearby, but this is, I think it was a cloudy day, but this is kind of deep in the canopy. So, you wouldn't expect an egret or a great blue heron to be, sort of deep into the woods under the canopy. So you learn a lot of things from trail cameras that I probably wouldn't have learned otherwise. And if you can find a log over water, that's even better. So again, another property in the Berkshires. This again, I think, was during one of the drought years where that big beaver pond we looked at the beginning is just upstream from here. And here's one that I recently got just this past fall in October, where in Whately, Massachusetts, where there's a big fallen tree across this Whately Brook, and got this bobcat coming right at my camera. So very excited to see that. So, some more photos with logs. I mean, this is actually a log next to a beaver pond. So, if you can pull in, two great things or three, the better your chances are. So this has been an amazing property for me. This is a conservation restriction sort of north of the Quabbin. Unfortunately, the property sold to a new successor landowner, and he let me keep my cameras there for about a year, but then asked if I would take them away. So it pained me to take these cameras down, because this log in this particular location, where it's always sort of wet on either side, and the high grass, I think a coyote puppy felt very safe to travel along that log. And like I said, I was naturally drawn to this log. It just looked like a nice place to walk on this mossy log. And here's the baby bear cub and a wet bobcat. So wetland edge habitat is good too. I do sometimes, if I don't really advertise that, but if people, I certainly, for a pretty reasonable rate, I can help. If you're interested in trail cameras, but just having a little trouble, and it's somewhere, reasonable travel district, anywhere in Massachusetts, or even, I've done some coaching with folks, just across the border in New York, or across the border in Connecticut or Vermont or New Hampshire. But this was a property in New Hampshire. And that light spot that you're seeing off in the background, that's a farmer's. His neighbor is a farmer and has a field full of corn. And the reason I set up there, I'm gonna play that one more time, is this is all jewelweed, and it's just sort of a wet seep. So again, it doesn't need to be a large body of water. This is mother bear back here, and these two cubs are just sort of getting to that age where they're exploring their territory, but still kind of keeping mom in sight here. This is that same upland vernal pool that we've looked at before. This is August of 2020. So I think at one point this, over the summer, this pool often will go dry. But we got a rain, it filled back up, and I'm pretty sure, we can look at that one more time. I'm pretty sure what he has in his mouth right there, I could see. I'm pretty sure it's a crayfish, which there's another mystery. I don't know how crayfish got into a vernal pool. There is no inlet, no outlet here. And it's nowhere, it's an upland vernal pool, so it's nowhere near. All I can figure is maybe some bird of prey had a crayfish and flew over and dropped out of their talons or something. I don't know. So another thing, this is that same conservation restriction with the mossy log. This is just an old woods road. So the neighbor, or the CR landowner, eventually did install a beaver deceiver. So I think at one point this whole road was underwater. But so I set up a trail cam along that road, and lots and lots of visitors came by. And this is that same road before the beaver deceiver gets installed. So this camera is in the exact same location. Like the only thing different here is it's set to video here, and here it was set to photo. So this is the same brush. I just love that with the yawning, very casual bobcat, not paying much attention. So, like I said, my absolute favorite thing to set up trail cameras on is I just love beavers. And, you know, especially this past year with the drought, beavers, you know, saw a lot of articles about beavers. You know, they are a keystone species, you know, and they're being praised now as you know, climate warriors. So this was a nice moment of a mother, father, and one of their kids. I will make a comment here that this particular brand of camera, unfortunately, don't make this model anymore. A is a white flash, and B, it had the ability to put on an interchangeable close focus lens, and that's why everything is so in focus. I'm sure a lot of you have set up trail cameras, and that's the problem. If the animal's too close to the camera, it either gets whited out or it's very blurry. This is from this past May, and just let you watch this and then we'll comment. So again, mom, dad, or actually, I think this is mom. I think this is maybe grandma and the baby. So this mother, she had a single baby. And if you're wondering, how did she get that footage? This is how I got that footage. So this is at a friend and colleague's property, where there is a beaver pond and a beaver lodge on a farm property. And you know, she walks around. The beavers are very used to her. They've gotten used to me now. And she saw this, you know, over here where it's green, that was the original beaver lodge. And she noticed that, you know, about a month before, that the beavers kept sort of building what we're going to call like the baby, you know, the nursery, this annex here. And we figured, you know, I wonder if one of them is pregnant and they're sort of making this little like annex onto their main lodge, but they hadn't packed it full of mud and stuff yet. So on a hunch, we, you know, were able to, you know, very carefully open the, you know, and get a trail camera in there. It was, you know, we only did it for about a week. And, but, you know, again, these beavers, I'm showing this to you all on this, with the, you know, I don't post a lot of this type of video because I do have a lot of followers on Facebook and Instagram, and I don't, you know, like I said, this was a very unique opportunity where these beavers knew my friend that's, you know, this is her property. They see her every day. And, you know, so I don't advocate just finding a beaver lodge and putting a camera in there, you know, but we were very careful to, you know, not do anything that would, you know, have negatively impacted the beavers. So otters are super fun to get on trail camera, but it took me years to get them on camera because they are so fast and zippy. I get like tails and blurs that I knew were probably an otter. So I think it was Janet Pescataro, who's got a great book, which I'll give that a link to that to Mariah as well. It's a good resource. She's got a great trail camera guide, but, you know, advising me to, you know, find yourself an otter latrine to set up, you know. So this is at the edge of a you know, lower Beaver Pond. I saw a lot of otter scats. You know, you can tell otter scat when, because it usually has like fish scales and stuff in it. And I set this up, and oh, and this is that GoPro. Or no, this is a regular camera, Spartan camera. But yeah, and this is dated 2021. So I started doing trail cameras in 2013, and I honestly can say this was probably the first time I got a really good otter video. You know, everything was in frame, it was in focus, and you know, they were just kind of comfortable in front of the camera. So that was cool. I'm going to play this video, and I'm not going to talk because I want you to kind of hear the vocalizations. This is also a very unique video of hearing just so many vocalizations in one short video. So what you're seeing here, the big tail here, that's mom, and she's got a couple of her kits here with her, and they are going to come into frame here in a second. But I'd never heard this sort of chirping noise. I mean, I've heard that kind of what I call like chuffing noise. And now when I heard this, and then that chirp, and I certainly heard that chirping noise before when I was around the edge of this pond, but I thought it was a bird. I didn't realize that otter could make a noise like that. Yeah, you heard it there, that little what I call like a chuffing noise. That's the one I most often associate with otters. And the reason I'm showing this whole video too is, you know, when you're going through all your videos on your card, you know, if I had just looked at the very beginning and said, yeah, it's all out of frame, you know, delete, I would have missed that at the very end. So it's, I definitely tend to make sure I go through everything. So sometimes you know, one nice thing about having followers on Facebook and Instagram, I had never gotten the opportunity, you know, all the years I was doing trail cams, I just never got red fox. I occasionally get gray fox. And during COVID, I had a gentleman message me out in the Berkshires on Instagram and said, you know, we bought this, or I think it was 2021. He and his husband had bought a house during COVID. I think they closed in November. And when he looked out the window in the spring of 2021, saw these fox pups coming out from underneath the barn. So, you know, he messaged me, said, you know, would you like to set up on, you know, an active fox den? I was like, yeah, I would. So set up this camera. It was a little challenging, like finding places to mount the camera. I don't know if you can see that in the back. That's just like a little screw-in mount that I screwed into the side of the barn here. But this was just one of, excuse me, of maybe 4 or 5 ingress and egress that these red fox pups had to, you know, going underneath this barn. So in the back there, the camera we just saw, that's right here, and I had it bungeed to a cinder block. And what's on that? That's a chicken feather, I'm pretty sure. So somebody nearby lost a chicken. So, and this is that homebrew camera set up on the cinder block. Very curious pups checking out my camera, adjusting my camera angle. Very kind of them. So another unique discovery I had this was actually during COVID. I think right when COVID had just sort of shut down the world, but my colleague and I were monitoring conservation restriction. We saw this amazing sugar maple with this hollow cavity in it, and we looked up and we're both pretty sure we saw something moving up in the tree. And he had his binoculars and he's like, yeah, there's definitely, I see like breathing, like something. And so we set up a couple of trail cameras. That's the same tree. That's me setting it up. So I set up a cellular camera. That's the antenna there because I figured if there were bears in there, I just sort of wanted to set up the camera and leave it be. So I actually set up, I think, 3 separate cameras. There's a cell cam here, regular camera over here, and I think I have one more over there. And this is what the cell camera got. So this, this was one of my older cellular cameras. So the quality is not that great, but it doesn't matter to me because this is just a cool thing to get the mother bear coming out with her 2 cubs there. So these are her yearling cubs, obviously. So, so she'd end up in this hollow tree, it's a sugar maple, it's still alive. And I still have the camera there to this day. I've not seen any bear activity probably in the last, probably the last 8 months, but I feel like if I pull it, the next day a bear is going to come. So it's been interesting, if you've ever done any training with Sue Morse, she talks about babysitter trees a lot, and that's sort of what, I'm pretty sure this is a babysitter tree. So, obviously they came back here because this was actually an April snowstorm. It was, we'd had sort of a, late March thaw, so the bears came out, and then we got a big snowstorm. So up the tree they went and back in. So, and then just, it was interesting just to watch the dates and the times. I mean, sometimes the whole family would come and just climb back up in that tree for half an hour, sometimes just one of the cubs. And this is that other camera that I had set up lower down. And this tree is enormous. I mean, it probably take, it's probably at least, I would say like a 8-foot diameter breast height. So the bear didn't even stay up there that long, but it went up. I think this is the next year. This is one of those yearling cubs, but a little bit bigger. But it's a big tree to, really sort of get a grip around. So can't see what that says, but oh, beaver dams. So again, this is what we saw in the beginning. The reason I set up a camera at both ends is, if one of your target species is bobcats, and you've been trying to get bobcats for a while, there's well-known syndrome of just getting bobcat butts. You set it up here and all you get is the bobcat's butt going away from you. Then you set it up, you take that camera, you move it to the other side, and then the bobcat decides, for the next 2 weeks, it's going to go this way. So I finally just set up a camera on both ends. And, another question I get, like, do you keep your cameras out all year long? And I do. So this is a nice little 4-season medley here along the Beaver Dam. And like I said, as I said, I mean, beavers do not have very good eyesight. They have excellent sense of smell. If you've ever startled them, you've probably heard the warning slap they'll do with their tail. But the white flash does not seem to, bother them at all. So this, this was a couple of different cameras, but all set up on the same exact tree along this beaver dam. And then this was, a couple of winters ago where, that beaver pond is entirely frozen over now. We mentioned in the beginning the viral otter that I got. So I left a cell camera out there. I think I last checked it because that's another question. Sally, how long do you wait between checking? I have cameras. I probably have over 40 trail cameras set up right now in, between where I live here in North Central Mass and Western Mass and Berkshire County. So, and this is, I wish it was, but this isn't my day job. So sometimes, I don't, I'll be honest, sometimes I've had cameras that have gone, a year between me checking them. So I had this camera set up on this beaver dam, and I left it out there, put fresh batteries in November. And for months I got, once it froze over, I got nothing. And then all of a sudden I got this, and then I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's it. That was fun. And then zoom, he came back. So, which, but it's, these are what I call sort of your bucket list trail cam captures, everything right there. The falling snow, the otter sliding right past, and then gliding through again, and that's the thing. I have been trying for years to get otter sliding. I've seen lots of sign of it when I've been out in the woods, but never managed to capture that. So sometimes another unique opportunity on this property, I went out to check and I was walking in and I was like, what is that? And I found the bones of the entire carcass of a moose. And earlier that year, I'd gotten a mother moose with two calves, and not 100% sure, but I think this was one of the calves. So I set up a camera on the what was left, and it's amazing how quickly this carcass got stripped, because I know the dates. When I had set up the camera, I think was like late October, and when I went back in, I think like the day after Christmas, just to change batteries before we got a big snowstorm. This was right next to one of my cameras, and it wasn't there in October. So I'm not sure, so, it was just a very interesting study to see who would come by. Fisher certainly stopped by a few times. Every time I post that on Facebook, I get told that somebody's dog or cat just freaked out when they played that. So, so vernal pools. I love doing setting up on vernal pools. This again is one of my most favorite photos. Again, this, like I said, I started in 2013. Probably, I've been doing trail cams for about a year. I think we were getting ready to do a tracking workshop with Hilltown Land Trust, and we went up there with my tracker friend and colleague, and we saw a lot of double registered bobcat prints going across the ice here. So threw up a couple of cameras, and I got this. This is Mr. Bobcat. This is Mrs. Bobcat. She clearly is in heat. She's rolling around here, signaling that she's interested. This is that same vernal pool, just getting the bobcat, out there on the ice. So, you think about travel corridors, and unfortunately this winter in Massachusetts, at least, we really haven't even had a winter yet. And I've been trying, since 2014 to try to get those bobcats again out on that frozen pond. And during their mating season, which is about, starting up about right now. I mean, usually like late January through early March. And, but right now with the warm weather we've had, and here it is, February, 16th? This ice is quickly melting here, so. Scenting, that's another really amazing thing that trail cams have taught me that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. In the animal world, it's all about, that's how they communicate, through scent. So this is that same frozen over vernal pool. I set up here on this log because the previous, earlier that spring, from the same camera angle, bobcat just marked that stump, but I had gotten a barred owl landing on that stump and was dining on salamanders and frogs. And then I got this bobcat really loving this log, so and they're marking it again. And that I'm not sure if that's a male bobcat or a female, but it's not, it's sent through that scent marking, it's sending messages to the to the other bobcats. And coyote was certainly interested as well there. So same vernal pool again, same, there's that stump. So again, scent marking, bears are all about scent marking, and it's, so they will pick one tree that they really, really like. And how did I know to do this tree? Is because I looked really carefully and I saw, like that picture we saw in the beginning, I saw bear hair stuck on it. And this is just a real, I mean, this is probably 6-inch diameter breast height hemlock tree, but they love that tree. So not only do they love this scent marking tree, but, this bear is, it's 72 degrees here. It's, that first video was back in May, but they will come all year long to, if there is water in that vernal pool, to cool off. So I often get bears, dripping with water. So this is more than likely that same mom with the 2 yearling cubs that we saw there up in the sugar maple tree. And what the mom is doing there in the back with pulling that branch and rubbing on that branch is she's scent marking that as well. She, that's not an accident that she's grabbing that branch. So she's rubbing on multiple trees here. And I don't know if you noticed, I just saw it, that she is still nursing these cubs, because I just saw. I think this is a different bear, but this is a big male bear. I get him a lot up here. And sometimes when he's rubbing on that, I can actually hear that, the audio on the camera can actually hear that tree squeaking when he's rubbing on that. So this is that same one of those conservation restrictions in the Berkshires. We call this sending P male. So, I saw that this is at, a intersection of, sort of overgrown trails, but 3 trails coming together, and there's this dead log there. And I just took a chance that that some animal was probably scenting on that. One of the pieces of advice I got from Sue Morse is, if you were a bear and you're having a yard sale, where would you put your yard sale sign? So her point of that is, if you you want to advertise a yard sale, you put it up, you know, where a couple of trails come together. This is a very sweet moment too. I believe it's the same mom again. Her cubs are getting older now. This is in October, so she's probably getting pretty close to telling her cubs, you know, they've got to head out on their own. Should have posted this yesterday for Valentine's. But she's very, very patient mom. That baby just wants to play. This is where I miss the oohs and the ahs if we were doing this in person. So why is it so damn addictive? Because you know, when I get a picture like this is another one of my sort of viral pictures that I got, you know, it's got dubbed the Bobcat photo bomb, with this curious bobcat just sort of peeking up at the camera. That's the log where I got the stump in the middle of the vernal pool. I still can't, as many times as I play this and I slow that down, I just can't 100% figure out what the owl has there in its talons. It is, I think it's a frog. That would make the most sense. I've had somebody say they think it's a rat, but I don't know why it would catch a rat out in the water on this property, but who knows. Just gonna being real conscious of the time here because I want to leave plenty of time for questions. But this is probably a good one to end on. This, you know, same setup. You know, this one got a camera here this time because the reason I set that camera up there is because I kept getting these bears dripping with water, and I said, God, I really would like to get the bear in the water, you know, cooling off. So I did get that. Now here he comes to sniff the camera, shake off. It's just maybe time to go rub on that tree one more time. You can sort of hear it there of that tree squeaking. I mean, this is a big bear. I think that's a male bear too. Now, watch what's going to happen next. This is the same video. I didn't edit anything in. So here comes the bobcat. So a lot of you that follow trail cam stuff on social media might remember that video that I think it was during COVID that kind of went viral with I think it was on Land Trust Land, California, of a coyote and a badger. You know, it's like, oh, are they BFFs? You know, and so I got asked that same question. You know, the bear and the bobcat BFFs, and I don't think so. I think both of the bobcat and the bear visit this vernal pool regularly, and I think that bobcat just happened to be here hunting. This bear came by, it sort of crouched down and this, you know, waited for the bear to pass. And it's a curious cat. So as soon as the bear walked off, here comes the cat. But you see, it does not, it's smart enough to sort of what's going on, you know, check that out, but it quickly turns around and comes back. So anywho, you know, I certainly want to leave enough time for questions. If, you know, I have more stuff I can show folks if there is, you know, if we run out of questions. So Mariah, do you want to turn it over to some questions?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll just guide folks that our preferred way would be for you to enter the questions into the Q&A, or you could virtually raise your hand and I can just boost your video and audio up to where you could ask the question yourself. So totally up to you. We do have some questions to get going already as some folks put them into the chat and the Q&A. I believe Brian had asked a question about beginner-friendly trail cameras. So I believe you answered that already, but they followed up with an inquiry about placing a camera near a bird feeder, if that would make a difference.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're talking about like setting it up right on the bird feeder. That can be challenging unless you had one of these cameras with a close focus lens. So normally your sweet spot in front of your camera is, maybe 5 to 8 feet to have everything in focus if it's not a close focus camera. Unfortunately, right now, I don't know of any cameras or any camera manufacturers that still make a camera with a close focus lens. However, one of the very user-friendly beginner cameras that I recommend is the Browning HP4, which you can, or I'll make sure Mariah has that link as well, but it's the Recon Force Elite HP4. And last time I checked, it was on Amazon, I think for $135, but it does do a very nice job if the animal is pretty close to the camera. So if you wanted to set it up on your, bird feeding station, if you've got a pileated woodpecker coming in or something, I can certainly help advise on, creative ways to mount it, so you can get it at that right distance away, sort of in that sweet spot. So.
Thank you for that. The questions are rolling in. I think,
Excellent.
Let's see here. Can you see that when I press answer the question? I don't know how this works.
Yes.
Do you use baits to attract animals?
No, I do not. I mean, I know some people do. Obviously, you might say, well, Sally, you set up on that moose carcass. That was just an opportunity that presented itself. So I do have some trail cam, sort of Facebook friends, one in particular up in Maine. He is a trapper. And so, occasionally at this time of year, he'll post a video where he's taken the remains of a beaver or something and kind of wired that to a tree so it can get lynx to come in and visit it. And a lot of, research people will do that as well if they're trying to get fisher or wolverines. They'll use some sort of bait and wire it to the tree because otherwise your bait is gone. So I don't recommend putting out any sort of food. I mean, for me, I'm doing trail cameras, not on my own property, on privately owned land, but two things. One, I don't want to habituate the animals that they're going to get a free meal. And second thing is, I don't want to artificially attract them in to, someplace that they, because I don't know where I'm set up, there could be, nearby, there could be a den or, if I put some sort of bait out and then coyotes come in and then the next thing I know, the mother, Canada goose and all her ducklings get it, or goslings get eaten. So I personally do not do that. So.
Great, thank you for that. A couple folks are interested in how large of an SD card do you recommend?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm going to answer that twofold. One is, does the quality of the SD card matter? And the answer is yes. So I highly recommend SanDisk SD cards. You want one with a speed, got one right here. Usually it'll have a number, like this one has 100 millibytes per second or megabytes per second. So that's how fast the data can write to the card. So if you're setting up cameras, primarily just to get videos of bears and bobcats and birds on your feeder and raccoons, on your compost pile, you want to make sure you have a fast enough card. You also want a class 10 SD card. And in terms of size, that's a very common question I get. So it sort of depends, two things. One, what type of camera you have, because a lot of cameras, like the Bushnells and you know, and a lot of stealth cams and the Spartan cameras that I run cannot take larger than a 32 gigabyte card. But trust me, a 32 gigabyte card will, you know, and if you've set it up where it's not getting falsely triggered by a blowing branch or blowing grass, and I understand that is a challenge at certain times of year, a big storm or something. But if you're just getting triggered by heat and motion, by animals coming by, a 32 gigabyte card is more than enough. You know, normally in my trail cam pack, I carry a variety of 16 gigabyte and 32 gigabyte. The camera that I most often recommend for people looking to, you know, either they've never bought a camera or they've got one that they got for Christmas, you know, 10 years ago. That's, you know, just a very slow trigger and not great photo and video quality. The one I recommend is a Browning camera. So I like the HP4, the HP5, but any Browning camera will allow you to put up to a 512 gigabyte card. Nobody, unless you're doing like bear, you know, polar bear research in the, you know, Arctic tundra, and you're only going to be able to get in there once a year, needs to be putting a 500. I mean, you can, but if you've ever bought SD cards, you know, when you start getting up to 64, 128, 512, they're very expensive. But it is a great question, because when I first got that grant, I was budgeting for, you know, 64 gigabyte cards. And, you know, that was, you know, I think at the time they were like $45 each. And I realized, you know, thankfully somebody said, you know, you don't need cards that big, just get 16 gigabyte.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Along those lines, Sharon was wondering, she said you mentioned that most of your cameras are left out for a while. Does severe heat and cold affect cameras?
Yes, so that's why I mentioned that I personally use the Energizer lithium batteries. Lithium batteries, you know, I think just with supply chain things and the fact that, you know, we're seeing more EV, you know, electric vehicles now, which run on lithium. The price has gone up, you know, I mean, so at some point it jumped from like $26.99 at BJ's to $36.99 for 18 batteries. And like my Spartan cellular cameras, they take 12 batteries to run it. So, you know, but if you're just doing a camera like in your backyard or, you know, back portion of your property, or maybe you live somewhere that butts up against the BNRC or trustees reservation, or you're near a, you know, bass, fish and game property or something, you know, and you're going to check it fairly often, I might, you know, recommend you can run alkaline, you know, a good alkaline battery like a Duracell, you know, say, you know, March through December, and then maybe, you know, if you're going to leave it out all winter, then I would advise putting a set of lithiums in there. And the lithiums will last a lot longer. So yes, they are more expensive than the alkaline batteries. They can be up to 3 times more expensive depending on where you buy them. But a good, you know, again, if you're set up somewhere where it's only being triggered by actual wildlife coming by and not falsely triggered by setting sun or shadows going past or blowing vegetation, those set of lithiums will last you up to a year. On a regular camera, cellular camera, because it's using battery power to you know, and a data plan to transmit it, you know, will run through batteries a bit quicker. So
about cellular cameras, Sally, when would you advise, like when would someone get involved with a cellular camera? What are the best applications? What's a good time to start playing around with that kind of camera?
Yeah, I mean, because I live in north central Massachusetts and I do cameras all over the state, and, you know, gas is expensive. You know, I started, I think in 2017, you know, tried my first cellular camera just to sort of see what it's like. And because I was getting a lot of questions from people like, you know, what do you think about cellular cameras? When's a good time? Do you recommend this model or that model? So, that's a great question. A good application is, say you're hiking around in the woods right now and you happen to discover, a bobcat den, or, what you think is a bear might be a bear den. I'm very conscious that I don't want my, these woods belong to these animals. This is their home, it's their habitat. I don't ever want my setting up of a trail camera, even though it might be like, oh my God, this is the best opportunity. This would be such amazing photo. If it's gonna negatively affect the target species, then I can't set it up there. So, but like I said, situation like the sugar maple, where I saw the tree, we saw what definitely looked like a bear up in the tree. The cell cam was a great application for that, because then I could just, so two things, I could just put the camera up and then the stuff just came to my phone, and I'm not coming into the area, because every time we go anywhere, no matter what, we are leaving our scent signature behind. Just like the animals are doing that as well, and rubbing on trees and scent marking stumps and things like that. We are leaving a scent everywhere we go. So that would be a great situation for cell cam. I mean, for me too, because if I go to the southern Berkshires to check a trail camera, that's 5 hours round trip of driving. So the cellular camera sort of, helps me, get some, the quality has gotten so much better that, when I first started with cell cams, I could really tell the difference between a regular camera and a cell camera. So if I was doing the same presentation, say back in 2017, somebody said, should I get a cell camera? I would have to say, well, if you do, the trade-off is, the plus is instant gratification. How cool is it to be sitting at your desk and your phone goes ding, and there's a bobcat right in front of your trail camera. But the negative, the con back in 2017 was it wasn't as nearly as good of quality of photos or videos that I'm able to get now from the brand of cell cameras that I use. And again, I do have an article coming out, I think in the next issue of Northern Woodlands, and I do give some recommendations for trail cams, but I will share with Mariah, a couple, when she sends follow-up information, I'll share, my Sally top pick for a white flash, red glow, and a cell cam.
Terrific advice. Thank you.
Awesome. We've got another question about your opinion regarding lithium rechargeable batteries.
Okay, well, those are two separate things. There's lithium and there's the nickel metal hydride. I don't know if there's actually, well, yeah, I guess there are lithium rechargeables. I don't personally use those. I know there's a camera brand that's, I'm actually trying one of them right now, but I'm blanking on the brand name. But it actually has this battery cartridge that's sort of shaped like, 8 AA batteries, and you can plug that whole thing in and then pull it out and charge it. So I have found that so I've been doing trail cameras for since 2013. So, and a lot of cameras that I'm still running, some of the cameras that I bought in 2013. I have noticed on the newer cameras, the ones that I'm going to give Mariah the recommendations for, the Browning HP4 and HP5, it does have a setting to say what type of batteries are you using. And up until 2019, your only choices were alkaline or lithium. The newer Brownings that have come out in the last couple of years now give you the choice of lithium, alkaline, or nickel metal hydride. And believe it or not, if you want to try the nickel metal hydride, the very best batteries that I've found are the IKEA brand rechargeable batteries. which if you don't live near an IKEA, I don't. I just bought them and they were shipped to my house. So wouldn't, if a trail cam friend hadn't told me that insider secret, I wouldn't have known that. But I have several other brands of nickel metal hydride, and the IKEA ones are far superior to them.
Awesome. We appreciate your sharing of the insider knowledge. The questions are just rolling in, so we'll just keep going at that. You feeling good?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So Sheila asked, at night, do animals react to the camera taking a photo?
It depends on the animal. I found most canids, especially coyotes, are they will easily get scared or, a little bit startled of even, whether it's certainly they will get spooked by the white flash. The red glow, if you set up a red glow camera and you're setting it up at dusk and then you walk past it, you will see a red light. So the animal does see that. There's also that Browning model I mentioned, the Recon Force. That's the red glow version. If you want what they call a black flash, where there's technically no visible light, I don't know if that's, I'm not sure if, there's no visible light to a human being, who knows if the other animals can see it. That would be the Spec Ops version. So it's pretty much the same exact camera, the Spec Ops versus the Recon Force. It's just that the Spec Ops has the flash array blacked out.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right, I'll just put it out there. If anyone has any further questions, feel free to raise your hand virtually or put them into the Q&A. This was great, Sally. Rich, go ahead.
Yep.
Oh, I just noticed that very early in the session, someone had asked, the first photos you were showing had a Recon X logo on them, and they had asked specifically if you know what model that was.
Yeah, that would have been a lot of the Browning stuff that you've seen here is this amazing model, which unfortunately, these trail cam companies, every year pretty much they come out with a new model. And I learned very early on that just because they came out with a new model does not necessarily mean it's better than the previous year's model. So if anybody emails me and says, Sally, what Browning model do you recommend? And I say HP4, and you jump on Amazon, it says, that's last year's model. Wouldn't you rather have an HP5? So in this case, I now have tried the HP5 and it's just as good as the HP4. So I would say whichever one is cheaper, but they're equally good. But I have definitely noticed over the years that sometimes I had a 2017 model of a Bushnell camera, and every other model for like the next 3 or 4 years just couldn't even hold a candle to that camera. So, and it's a way for the trail cam companies to charge you more money because, you need the 2023 model. So, you'll have my contact information. I probably get a half a dozen, Facebook or Instagram messages a week. If I don't get back to you right away, it's just because I'm super busy. So, message me again. But I do try to answer people, I'm always happy to help with a trail cam recommendation. Because, I don't want people, I want people to get as much fun out of this as I do. And it can be really frustrating when you buy a camera and, it's just, not great quality, or, it stops working after 6 months. So, so always happy to help if you're thinking about getting into trail cameras, or you have a couple of trail cameras that are kind of outdated, shoot me an email, send me a message on Facebook or Instagram. I'm happy to help.
That's wonderful. I'm not seeing any more questions. I just want to share, there's a lot of thank yous coming in the chat, but a huge, huge thank you for sharing your knowledge in such an accessible way and being willing to have folks follow up with you and continue to share. I think I speak for all of us on just inspiring that curiosity and passion for wildlife. It's just so lovely to hear your passion. We did have one other question pop in if you have a second. Any tips on mounting? Would be
That's
appreciated.
a great question. So I'm actually going to go back to the beginning here and get rid of that for a sec there. So most of my cameras, like I said, I do use why I can't go now. I'm locked up. Guess I angered it. I don't know what's happening there. Anyway, but yeah, most of my cameras are inside a bear box. So and again, because I am setting them up on other people's property, I do not like lag, but they're not my trees, and so I don't want to like introduce any pathogens or anything by like lag bolting, boxes into people's trees. I mean, if it's your property, your trees, that's your choice. So normally the bear boxes, they're made of stainless steel. They have 2 slots in the back where you can pass through a nylon strap. So most commonly, that's how I do my mounting. They do sell, if you're setting one up with, without a bear box, and you could, I've got a friend who just uses like heavy duty wire to, wire it. Or you could even just take like a tomato stake and put that in, and kind of wire it or tie it with that strap to a couple of tomato stakes. So again, if you've got a particular mounting challenge that you need my advice on, happy to, shoot me an email and we can brainstorm on that.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Before we log off here, folks, I'll just share, we will be passing along this recording and all of the lovely resources that Sally shared as soon as possible. So keep an eye out for that in your email. Yeah, and I'll just say thanks again. And if you have a chance, peek into the chat. They're singing your praises in there.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. And like I said, everybody here that signed up, and I'm sure some people signed up and will just be watching the recording, but I'm always happy to take any questions. I want you to, my only caveat is it is very addictive, and I started with 3 cameras and now I have probably 43 cameras. So but it is a healthy addiction. Gets you outside, gets you connected better with the natural world. And so get out there, get some cameras, have fun with it.
Love that. Thanks so much, Sally.
Okay,
See you soon.
All right, bye.